You're listening to Building a Creative Life. I'm Pam Vale, an artist and writer. This podcast is about the small, often overlooked ways creativity shows up in real life, in what we notice and in what we choose to respond to. Here you'll find conversations and reflections shaped by curiosity, not instruction. No expectations, nothing to master. Just room to pay attention and trust where that leads. Holly Gutwillinger grew up in a small town in northern Ontario and has been creative for as long as she can remember. Over the years, that creativity has taken different forms through writing, podcasting, and the life she's been living. Her debut novel, North of Broken and Forever Home, comes out in February 2026. And it grew out of her relationship with her rescue dogs and her own lived experience. In this conversation, we talk about self-doubt, community, writing later in life, and what it looks like to stay with a creative life without needing it to be big or performance-oriented. Be sure to listen through to the end. I'll share a few reflections on what stayed with me from our conversation. Well, welcome, Holly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
I know. I'm so grateful that we connected. Such a sort of random way that we found each other, but I think sometimes that's the best. And when you don't expect it, and we're kind of like people are drawn to each other, and so I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. I think that's one of the things that I like about Substack the most. Well, I really do enjoy notes as well, but this random connection is happening in times when you just don't expect it, and people you would probably never have run into otherwise. So I'm grateful for that, and I guess I'm not afraid to reach out anymore. I probably was at one time, but so I'm happy you responded.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I find, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I find Substack very welcoming and authentic, and people really want to connect. Feels genuine.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I have a lot of things I want to talk to you about today. I'm really excited.
Yes.
I would love it if you could give like a little overview of who you are and what you do, and then we'll kind of get into some of the topics.
Sure. So I have been a Northern Ontario girl, and even further north my whole life. I moved with my husband and small children all those years ago to the Northwest Territories, but we came back here, so we came full circle. I've always been a creator, I guess, with a creative mind, and I do work full time in the corrections field, but I always say my life begins at 4 when I get to do the fun stuff and create for me. My writing started just a few years ago, but it was already rooted in some other creative ways that I was toying with. It's just that I seriously started to write a few years ago. My boys are grown and gone, and so I have more time now to dedicate to the things that I love, but I've always had my hands in about a million things.
Sounds good. And when you say corrections, do you mean like law enforcement or like prison?
Parole.
Parole. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting because my husband's a retired police officer, and
Okay.
it's just so funny because not long ago we were talking about creativity, and like I was sort of reevaluating some creative things, and I was talking to him about it, and he kind of felt like he wasn't creative, like in his sort of law enforcement lifestyle. But then once we got into it, it was like amazing how much crossover there was, where he didn't really think of it as being creative, but there are like problem solving and different creative ways of dealing with things that I'm sure you encounter in this other, like very different profession that you have from your evening fun.
Yes, and I think that we dismiss our creativity a lot. A lot of people don't think they have an ounce of creativity in them, but when you, like you said, you stop and think about what you actually do in a day, or how you make decisions, or maybe it's with how you walk your dog. Like, everybody has creativity. It's just, unfortunately, as a society, we've pigeonholed creativity to a certain thing. It has to have a medium attached to it, and that's not necessarily so. It could just be creative ways that you make supper or read a book or write a note to your friend. So
Absolutely.
I like that you had that conversation. And maybe I'll have the same with my own husband, because retirement is coming up and we wonder, like, okay, I'm worried. What is he going to do when he's retired? But his creativity is through sports, golf. So,
Right.
yeah.
And it can come out all different ways. And there doesn't have to be like a product that comes out of it. It can be the process.
Right.
Yeah. So, so if you've been creative throughout your life, I know I had read a little bit about you, and I was curious if you could like explain a little bit about the difference of how you were as a creative in the past versus now. Like what has changed for you as far as like your personal creative expression, or maybe your mediums? I know writing is newer.
Yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I love this question. It's not one that's been asked, so I love this because it allows me to sort of do that self-reflection at the same time, which I appreciate. And I think the biggest change for me is I've tried everything, as many have, right? Like every hobby, maybe not every sport and every hobby, but you know what I'm saying. Like I've tried a lot. I've spent a lot of money, I've collected, I've gathered, I've done all the things. But the difference for me now is that I have funneled those interests to a point where I'm more focused. I don't know if that's an age thing, but I am more focused on the things that I am doing. I still maybe have a few on the go, but I enjoy those, and I enjoy the process rather than the product. And I know that's kind of repetitive. We've said that a lot for the last few years, but I really believe that. I was that person who was creating for the sole purpose of product, accolades, approval. I wanted to have that. Now, it's all good. I don't need to have anyone's approval except for my own. Sure, it's nice to have, compliments and whatnot. I'll never say no to that, but that's where the difference lies for me, is I create now for myself and for the joy of it.
And it's such a huge takeaway for people listening that, I've been an artist my whole life. I've been a creator my whole life. And I think that it's so easy to forget that. I think it's easy. Two things that I hear you talking about is that it's easy to forget that we can change, right? Like we can have that time period where we're super like productive and, we want like an outcome, or maybe there's a need for an outcome if it's a project you're working on, or home decor or a party or whatever. And then also, like, we change as we get older. I find that at my age, I don't really care as much about what other people think. I don't have to follow trends, or I do it for myself. And I think that's a great takeaway for people.
I still care about what I'm creating and the final product, as in, you still want to have some pride in it. But if it's what I used to consider a failure before, I see now more as a challenge to work through something. And if it's not meant for me, then if I've tried several times and it's just not working, I get it. It's not for me. I just maybe move on to the next thing. But writing is definitely for me. And it's definitely where my heart has found its home. I love everything about it. And knitting. I've come back to my knitting. So.
I know. I always have like knitting or crochet project on the go.
Yes, that's right. You knit as well.
I do.
Yep. That's a whole other podcast.
It is. It's so awesome. And I think it's great that young people are finding it. I think that I love this return to like the cottagecore or grandma hobby thing. I think it's great. So with writing, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. And like, I know you said it's kind of always been there, but it's shown up more substantially recently. How did that start talking to you? Like, where did that begin for you?
It started when I was running. So there's an origin story to how the book started, but there's also an origin story to how the writing became more serious for me. And I was nearing my 50th birthday, and I wanted to do something grand for myself. I wasn't looking for a birthday party, but I really wanted to commemorate that year, because I remember when my parents turned 50, and I thought, wow, that was like, I don't know, I just saw them in a different light when they were 50. And I saw myself different as well. I thought 50 is a big number for a lot of people. And they attach a lot of meaning to it, whether it's through parties or, I think it was like, for me, it's the pinnacle, right? I was at my absolute best. And not that I won't get better, but there's something about that word 50. Anyways, I'm rambling. So I wanted to do something big. So I thought, okay, I'm going to run 50 5-kilometer runs. Walk, run, like this wasn't, time based here. It was just getting them done. And so I started. And I started inside on the treadmill at the gym. And I've always sort of been active, but it was a goal. And it was like a fitness goal at the same time. But every time I would run, these poems would download into my thoughts. And so then I'd have to stop and I would write them down because I didn't know where this was coming from. And this went on. This kept going. It was going on and on and on. And I ended up with so many texts to myself. and then I started transcribing them into a book. And I thought, first of all, what is this telling me? But second, what could I do with this? So I thought this might be my way to give something to my boys, my adult sons, a gift to tell them that, hey, 50 is not that bad. I mean, if you hear, people sometimes will be, oh, you wait till you turn 50, you'll have this and you'll have that. Sure, okay, I get it. But I thought, no, there's got to be something better than this. So I did. I compiled them. I created this little wee chapbook, I suppose, and I knew nothing about Amazon creating books, but I did it. I got through it, and I called it 50, and I gave it to my sons as a gift on my birthday. Whether, they've read it or not, but I was just proud of it, and that's sort of what catapulted me into continuing. And then the story of, my dog came not long or somewhere, I think, parallel with that. But that's how it all began for me.
I have to, dive into this with you because I think this is such a beautiful story. And I think, so there is, some kind of biological or scientific connection to walking, maybe running with with writing or gathering processing information, right? Yes. And so I also find when I walk I get a lot of downloads and I have so many email drafts or drafts to myself, same thing. So I think that what a beautiful gift that this thing that you did for yourself, totally unrelated to a creative expression, gave you another gift, gave you the ultimate gift, right? Because it gave you this creative outlet that you hadn't had access to, or maybe hadn't looked at or hadn't heard from, or whatever you believe. And I think it shows people that just by taking action in some way, this can happen. You just don't know what's going to come out of it, right?
You don't.
That's so amazing to me, right? You're such a proof of this thing that can happen. It's this magical thing that happens when you are active.
It really was magical, and I wish I would have journaled more at that point as to my process from then till now. I'm trying to start that journaling process, and that's a whole other conversation as well. But I think there were so many self-doubts in those first, few weeks, few months, years, that I continued to write secretly, actually. I never even told my husband that I was writing. I gave that book to my sons, but I just kind of put one to the side, and I never really even told my husband about it. And I don't know why, if it was just embarrassment, or I think it was the self-doubts, I'm not good enough, I'm not a writer, I'm not this, all the things that, your inner critic chitter-chats inside your mind. And, but I felt strong enough to give it to my sons for some reason, but not with my husband. And so I think the following year was a big anniversary for us, and I wrote him 25 letters to my husband with 25 adjectives. So I slowly was starting to come back to my roots of writing the notes, the letters, the handwritten, And I was starting to incorporate that more and more. Although my left hand has become very, it gets tired fast and sore. But I'm thankful for computers. But I was coming back to that foundation, that where I was before as a little girl. And now it's just evolved into something completely different. But yeah, what a gift.
What a gift. And I believe that even if your sons don't read it or haven't read it, I think that you pass something on with that. Like, I feel like there's some power of example that you become just by doing it, like just by having created that, and I know that I want to talk about your book too, and I also will put all your contact information in the show notes so people can find all of this and find your book, and we're going to talk about that. But I also know you do a podcast, and I know it's with one of your sons, right?
Yes.
And so I would love it if you could talk a little bit about the difference between the creative expression in creating a podcast versus like your writing or maybe your other creative outlets, and then also like the connection of doing with one of your children. I think is so cool.
Talk about a gift.
Ooh.
Podcasting, that was, my goodness, fear. I was stuck in fear for so long. I've been wanting to create a podcast for a long time. I've been listening to them for years, and I love what they bring to my life. It's just company on a walk. It's during a drive, a long drive. Everything is far from where I live, so I can fill the hours with conversation and listening to someone tell me how to do this or how to improve this other aspect of my life. Writing, my goodness, I'm sure half of what I know for writing has come through podcasts. I'm so grateful for those podcasters. So I really wanted to create a podcast, but I was stuck in fear. I didn't know what to podcast. I knew I wanted to do it, but so my son and I, we tried several times. We were doing book reviews, and just wasn't sitting well with me, and so I could never move through it. Finally, I think people were tired of hearing me say it or talk about this podcast that I wanted to start. They just kept saying, okay, well, when are you going to start it? Just do it. So with the book, The Connection to My Dogs, it happened. And sort of like this little portal opened, and it gave me the subject. And I thought, well, of course, that's where I naturally should be going. Hello. So I did, and I may have lured my son in, for the first, Rogan, I just need you for the first couple, just to get me off my feet and get going, because like the digital component is very different. I'm used to this new word that I'm loving here, analog.
It's a buzzword. It's definitely like
it
around.
Makes me laugh. I know, and I shouldn't laugh because I'm super happy with what's going on, but it does make me laugh because we're just going back to what I was doing when I was 20. Okay, so I lured Rogan in, and now he's with me, and we have the greatest time. And it's like this. We just have conversations with people who are from all kinds of backgrounds, but who have a connection with their pets and how they think that their pets influence their creativity. So that is definitely like the niche, the subject matter. And we have conversations, and we have fun, and then Rogan and I will ramble on for a few minutes after the guest has left, and it's a time for me to connect with him, and because I connect with both boys on different levels, but Rogan is my little creative mind as well, whereas my other son is more of an academic. And we laugh, and I don't know if people what they think of it, but we're having fun. And I stepped through that portal of fear, and here we are. We're only 2 months in, but we are having so much fun. So it's very different than the writing life, but they're coming together. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just becoming part of who I am now. And I've always loved having conversations with people. Even though I can spend hours by myself, not an issue. I love it. But I love getting to know people and seeing, like, what do you do? I ask far too many questions sometimes, but it's out of pure, authentic curiosity.
And I think that's sort of the basis of creativity, is that curiosity in all areas, How did you, so the self-doubt or the fear that you have, how did you work through that? Did you have something that helped you?
I mean, that's never going to leave me 100%. I don't think that anyone will never have that little inner critic chirping, but it's how you manage it. And I think it's just that she was chirping a lot louder back in my younger days. And again, with this growth and comes the wisdom, the patience, and I gave her a name. And so it's I do have it on my Substack quite a bit, but her name is Rebel Betty. And she'll have her own story and her own novel at some point, that I can guarantee you. But I gave her a name, and then I gave her a different kind of power. Not a power, because she was taking me down, and she didn't have a name. When she didn't have a name, she was mighty and powerful in all of the negative ways, in all the ways that kept me from telling my husband I was writing, coming out in public and just, meeting other writers and saying, yes, I am an author. I never wanted to say that. So when I gave her the name, I also gave her a different power so that she could push me. Yes, she might still be like, do you really think you should be doing that? And then following that, she'd be like, come on, show me that you can do it. So I saw her, I gave her a gender and a name. But because I truly see her as a much older woman, she is in her late 70s. I see her like physically, and she's just like pushing me and just saying, go, let's show me, prove me wrong. So
I think that's such a creative and brilliant way to reframe something. I know in therapy you hear a lot like name it to tame it, and that's like, what a gorgeous way to do that, and what a kind way to yourself. Like I feel like it's it's giving yourself support as opposed to letting it take you down.
Rogan and we were on Manitoulin Island, which is a popular tourist point here, about 2 hours northeast of here, or northwest. I could have that wrong. Sorry. Anyways, it's a beautiful island, and we were in a small art store, and there was a woman in there she's the one who sparked the idea for me, because my Rebel Betty doesn't look like her, and it's not her name, the woman that we met. But the woman that I met was independent. She was older, and I saw the strength in her. Like, she had left the city she moved from Toronto to the island, which was quite a distance. Population, I don't even know how many were on the island, a couple thousand maybe. And she left that life to start her own. And I thought, she inspired me that day, that woman. And everything she told us, the stories that she shared with us, I thought, that's what Rebel Betty is based on, because I saw strength in that woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it shows you too, like, another example in your life of you getting out in the world and then like being open to connection and what that can provide that you don't expect, or you're maybe not looking for, and like
yeah and who knows, maybe one day I'll mentor someone, or I'll have that influence on someone. You never know what you say or do can influence someone else.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a lot with podcasts.
Yeah, true.
And I would love to talk about your book. So I'm very excited for you because this is like such a cool thing. And I would love to talk about your topic too, because, I know that's very like personal to you, and you're very passionate about it. And I think that people don't often think about a connection between their pets or animals and creativity, where in some cultures like that's closely connected. And so I think overall it's not something we think about. So I would love if you could like talk about where you are now and like what you're doing and what you have coming up.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this opportunity. I was never going to write a novel. I was just toying with some words, some lines that came through my dog's voice that I created, and just as a matter of trying to understand them, because at that point my dogs were a little over 10, and I had tried everything. I have 2 rescue dogs, and they are the dogs that are in the story. That is their story for sure. Not much is recreated as far as the stories that you'll read about them are true, except for the rescue mission, but it's very close to the truth because I do know how those rescue missions happen. So I just was looking for a way to understand my dogs because we'd been through dog obedience and behaviorists and all the things you can imagine. And yet Sully still had countless fears and Cash was still very assertive, let's put it that way. Always has been. And one day, Sully was just sort of coming up towards me, which he doesn't give a lot of affection. He doesn't sit beside people. He's always at an arm's length away. And again, like those lines sort of downloaded as I watched him hop towards me with his ears just flopping and his tail was wagging. It was one of those sort of open moments where he was like, I'm okay. I'm doing fine. You just need to accept me like I accept you. Let's just live together, in harmony here. Don't need to fix me. So that's kind of what came through. And the rest is history. Like I just kept going. I kept writing. I kept these poems for him, kept downloading just like the ones in Running. And I kept jotting them down. And then I met up with a friend here in town and I was saying like, I don't really know what to do with these poems. And I'm not a writer. And she said, sounds like you are a writer to me. And that was another switch for me because it was like somebody gave me permission, which I know sounds silly, but in those early days when you are self-doubting and you're, Rebel Betty is just chirping really loud, although she didn't have a name back then, but you couldn't put, a name to all of these things that were happening, but somebody stands in front of you, someone you admire and trust and is a friend, and she says, well, and she's a writer, and she says that to you, and I remember the moment. And I walked away from her and my life has changed just because I felt like, okay, wow, somebody saw something in me that I wouldn't even believe. And so I kept going. I kept writing scenes. And then I took classes, more classes, podcasts, oh, my favorite thing. And I just kept pushing forward. I joined group sessions where you would do exchanges and critiques, and I was a sponge and I took it all in. And I haven't stopped. I've enrolled in, I took a creative writing certificate at a local college. Then I went to the University of Toronto, got a creative certificate there, and now I'm enrolled in an MFA, just constantly trying to learn and practice. I mean, it was practice, practice, practice. And I just kept putting it together. And now I'm at the point where I am less than a month away from self-publishing this novel.
So
and my community here has been very supportive. So
congratulations.
I'm very happy about that.
What a huge accomplishment. How long did it take you from when you first saw her walking towards you and heard the voice, to now? How long was that? Do you know?
A little over 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, some may say that's not a long time. Some may say that is, but it just is what it is. I mean, if I was traditionally publishing, it would be, a lot longer than that, but I'm going through with it. I'm enjoying every aspect of this. I'm not saying it's not difficult, because it is. And again, I'm of the generation that I've had to learn everything. And I thought my sons would be able to help me with a lot of that, and they don't have that skill. Like the social media, they're not really involved in social media, but I've learned so much. And I thought, oh gosh, do I have to learn everything? I'm like, yes, you do, because somebody else is going to come by and is going to need your help. And in fact, I've had a couple people say, oh, well, can you show me? Yes, that's the whole point. Because, again, this project, I've really tried to incorporate as many community partners as possible. Even at my launch, I've got different vendors who are coming, and proceeds are going to go back to a shelter. So that's my way of giving back to the countless people who rescue these dogs and who take care of them. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to think of, I tried to volunteer, but they never called me to go do the volunteer hours, which I couldn't figure out. So I said, okay, I'll create my own volunteering. And this was how I saw it. So all the pieces just sort of came together in their own way, in their own time. And here we are, less than a month away.
It's crazy. It is. Did you write, when you were writing this one, did you write with pen and paper, or did you write on a computer?
On a computer.
You did on a computer.
Yeah.
And did you have...
Yeah, because
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, my hand cramps now quicker. And that's one thing I loved. My whole life was writing. And now I find my writing has changed. It's evolved, and it does cramp a lot quicker. So I still do, and if anybody has any, you know,
Tips?
um, tips on how to save my hand, I've had physio. Like I just try to take care of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And did you have a set like schedule? Like how did the like logistics or the like the technical part of it work for you? Did you have did you light a candle and like sit in a certain
Right.
place or
Yeah. Well, this is my writing shed. I call it Ramblings from the Little Shed for a reason because this is where I come to create now. We built a garage when we moved here and we added on just a tiny little piece so that I'd have a space to create. And I invite friends here now too, and they love it because I don't know if you can actually see it in the screen, but I have a fire going and it's I've created that cozy environment. But I don't have like a set routine where I have, the candle or the coffee. When the writing bug hits me, I go for it. And with that book, it was like a gift from my dog, but my dog was the conduit because the first draft, which was extremely messy and had a complete rework, but it came through in less than 3 months. Like I just kept writing. So it was like it was just channeling through me and I got it down on paper. It was all like the rest of the time was building, developing, learning because I didn't know what writing craft was specifically. And there's still so much to learn, but that's okay. I'm enjoying it. So,
and
yeah.
I know like with continuing education, did you find the classes that you took, did they sort of align with whatever you were working with at that time? Like how did you choose what to learn and when to learn it?
Well, I chose the University of Toronto School of Continuing Education because their classes were very specific to what you wanted to learn. So I started with, I think it was a grammar introduction to writing, which I had taken a long time ago, but you sort of start from the beginning again. And then I went on to writing the novel. And then I went into, for fun, I took a rom-com class. Like I really tried to tailor it to what my interests were at the time. And I learned so much from those classes. They were provided online, virtual. And this was after COVID, but we had already established this virtual online learning portals, which made it possible for people like me who don't live in a city, able to take these classes. And they were like priceless as far as the content that I've been able to acquire from them. The MFA is very different. It's a lot more self-directed and not as intensive as those University of Toronto classes specifically. I can't speak to any other programs or classes, but there's not quite as much class time. But I do have a mentor that I provide, 5,000 words and she gives me feedback and then we have meetings to talk about it. So that is very specific to my project. Yeah.
That makes sense. And
One's not better than the other.
no,
It's just they're different.
different. And I guess,
Yeah.
it also depends on somebody's like the path that they're on, like,
Yep.
a couple of classes on the side might be fine or, getting your MFA is, an
Yeah.
amazing thing as well. So I think it's just so personal.
Yeah. And with this whole evolution of traditional versus indie publishing, that's changing the landscape. And so I was just in a residency for a week online because that's how they provide it for the winter residency. And if I was traditionally publishing, I would have left that residency very discouraged.
Really?
Because they're truthful. I mean, it's the truth. People know traditionally publishing is not an easy venture. Like you have to put a lot of work into it. You have to query and there's something to be said about all that and I respect all of it. It's just not the path that I chose for this book. And my project for my MFA is different than this book. So who knows? I may change my mind, but I don't know. I'm really enjoying all of the process that I'm going through right now. So
Which is
I think
great.
I missed a calling in life. I should have been like I don't know, a graphic artist, maybe.
Maybe. And I think that there's so many tools available now too that make it
Yeah.
possible for anybody to really do
Hmm.
that. Those weren't available 5 years ago or 10 years
That's
ago.
right.
And something like Canva, or things
Yes.
that are free, Procreate on an iPad, or like all these digital tools that are available, really open up a door for creative expression for people that didn't
I
have
agree.
access.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because now I'm making posters that I never thought I would do. I'm making reels from Canva, and Canva is my best friend.
Canva's amazing. I think what a great
Yeah.
resource for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about community and about, I think that you said that you were in a writing, are you on the board of something? The
Yes, I volunteer on the board of our local Writers Guild here,
Guild,
where
I
we
couldn't
get
think of the
together
word,
once
Guild.
a month. And yeah, the community can participate. We have a membership. But I'm also part of the Women's Fiction, I always get this wrong, WFWA, Women's Fiction Writers Association. And they're based out of the United States, but they've opened up to people all over the world, which is incredible. I have met so many wonderful people through that association, so I decided to volunteer there as well. Just a little bit challenging online, but I'm figuring it out. I think I'm kind of digging my heels in the sand a little bit, going, oh, I don't know, this is really difficult. And I'm like, no, you just got to give it time and learn. And so,
How do you
yeah,
so
so
how do you feel about the importance of like communities? But I mean, creativity and creative expression can be very solitary, a very solid, especially writing.
yes.
It's not like a group activity generally, but how do you work community, other ways of using community into what you're doing, or like what do you think the importance is, or how does it benefit you?
So, like I said, I can spend hours by myself. There's a lot of people who say, yes, writing is very solitary, and I embrace that because I love it. I'm okay by myself in my writing shed and just doing my thing. But when I do need that social time, I'm very lucky to have found a group of people that we've been meeting now for 3 months, and I think we're good. Like, we are a great group of when I say like-minded, we're creative, but we all create differently. We've got an artist, we've got a published author, we've got someone who journals, a graphic artist, like people from all walks of life. And there aren't many of us, but we meet weekly. We try to. And we started this, like I said, 3 months ago, and it's stuck. And now we look forward to it every week. So we go, we chat, then we do sprints of whatever it is you may be working on. Then we chat and we do sprints, and we continue that way until it's time to go. And it's just very organic, the way that it came together, but also how the evenings work themselves out. And when you walk away from a group like that, there's no other way to walk away but happy. I mean, it's we share, maybe it's just something about life, but we don't like hang out on in other times of the week. It's just we come together in those moments. But we respect one another, we support one another, and it works. And so I think that as much as I do enjoy my time alone, I realize that that is equally important.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
sometimes I have to make an effort to step out of the yard as well, and then when I do, I'm super happy that I've done it. So,
I feel the same. Like I don't know, during lockdown and everything, I could have kept myself busy for years and never left my house, and I was totally fine. And like I think, for me, I have to be intentional about it. Like I do like
yes.
being social, and I do love talking to people, and I'm very
Yeah.
curious, but I really love being home. And I love,
Okay. I haven't met very many other
oh
people
my
like that. So
God.
I'm so happy that you're saying that because I try not to say it too often because then people are like, come on,
No, me, I could be home all the
you.
time. I love it. And I love being in New England now because we have like the hibernating season. So you're like expected
Mm-hmm.
to like sort of be
Mm-hmm.
home and not go anywhere. So I do
Yeah.
think that creative community, especially, I don't know, I think as we get older and it's more difficult to make friends when you're, a
Mm-hmm.
little older and you don't have young children. you have to be intentional about it. I find that you
I
have to
agree.
really like seek it out. But I also feel like, some of the stuff that you just described about the different types of people that are in your group,
Mhm.
what a great opportunity to just like absorb other creative energy. It's just
Yeah.
different, and
Yeah.
you just like benefit from that in so many ways, I think.
Oh, yes. Like there's one gentleman in our group, and he's a graphic artist. I'm sorry if I'm not giving him the right title, but he's multi-talented in everything digital. And he is going to take my book cover and animate it for me.
Wow.
And I am so excited because he's working on it right now. And he did it for one of the other ladies in the group who's published her novel.
Hmm.
And it was fantastic. Like just such a fun creation. And it gives him the opportunity to shine and to, like, we will promote him. And so it's like a mutual um, exchange.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like we need more of
So,
that. So that's so
yes.
good. Now, with your
Yes.
book,
It's not monetized.
no,
Yes.
yeah, with your book, so your connection between animals and creativity or your creative expression, can you talk
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about that? Because I find it very
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. We've had a dog. I love dogs, but I am a cat person, and
Okay.
my cats, like, they are part of my creative life and my day and my just before this podcast I went down to like cuddle a cat just because it
Yeah.
feels good, and like, I find a very direct relationship between that, but I never really thought about it until like we met, and I started thinking about it. So I would love like if you could
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Well, I attribute this book to my dog, 100%. Like I said before, it was a gift, and he was the conduit, and he just like, here you are, like here's my story, and
How lucky he found you.
aw, yeah, yeah, and I think for me, if I'm knitting, I'm on the couch. My other dog, Cash, he's on my lap. The cat is usually right beside me as well. She was a barn cat. They're all the same age, which is kind of funny, but she'll be close by. But she allows us to touch her a little bit more, and she's older now. So I thank you, Willow, for doing that. But Cash will be on my lap. Sully is always at a distance, but he brings this calm, quiet, vibe with him, and I just love having him around. But I credit my dogs to influencing this book, and so for me, I thought, if I feel this way, I know there are many more people who feel that way too. And like you said, it could just be getting a cuddle. It could be taking a break from your creativity, because sometimes we do get frustrated. Our shoulders start to creep up. We get that stress going. I can't do anything right. Go out, take your dog for a walk, go play in the yard with the dog, throw the ball. So for me, that's a direct influence on how I create, because they're teaching me to relax, chill out a little bit. Don't take it so seriously.
And I love how they taught you like what you were thinking wasn't correct. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that, I forget the not Cash. What's the other dog's name?
Sully.
Sully. Like how
Yeah.
he was like, I'm fine. Like
Yeah.
the like you had this thought, but it was like,
Yep.
no, I'm good. This is what I'm supposed
Like,
to
I
be
mean,
doing.
exactly. And I know he's happy. It's just when he continues to display those fears, doorways are still an issue for Sully. And it doesn't matter if he's been through that door easy the night before, the next day it might be a new door for him, like that very same door. It's who knows what baggage he brings with him. But he's happy. He's at his happiest when he's laying in the grass or in the yard in the snow and just taking in life. And so there's something to be said about that. But the thing that came through this process was people were like, oh, you're writing a rescue story. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I rescued the dogs. Not me, but like the character in the book, because I did create, it was autofiction turned fiction. But in the end, talk about an aha moment. It was a story of acceptance, because I now accept my dogs for who they are, and they've always accepted me. So
As they do.
that's as they do. Yeah.
That's such a what a cool metaphor, the doorway, like visual thing is for like for anybody, for like people and people you meet, and how you don't know what baggage someone's carrying, or you don't know, like, even though, I love to talk about creativity and creative expression, like even with that, like, you don't know, like, someone was shut down, or someone had something said to them, or whatever they come with, and like that vision, that like visual thing of like just walking through a door, even if it's a door you've already been through, like how that can be difficult. Like, what a beautiful like symbol from this dog.
It's his reality. He will not come through the door to the garage at all, unless I put him on a leash, and then he's happy to come through.
Interesting.
So to me, that was a message that he likes to be guided and led. We take him for a walk. He's over the moon when the leash comes out. But in other circumstances, like, he just cowers. So it's like, I need you to lead me. I need you to be my leader. And so that's how I see it. So if we want him to come in this space and just enjoy, sitting by the fire, I have to put him on a leash. Otherwise, he will not walk through that door. Wow. So
they're great teachers.
And where does that come from?
They're just good teachers, I think, if we listen, and the fact that you were aware of this and receptive. And I think with creative things, there's a lot of times that like, people, for whatever reason, don't maybe see what's in front of them. There's a book called The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp, which is amazing if anybody is interested in like a book about creative expression and finding your creativity. But I think it was in that book where she talked about ideas and how they're meant for somebody, but if you don't grab it, it will move on to someone else, and like, this is a perfect example. It could have been an idea that you didn't pay attention to or weren't receptive to, and
True.
And
thanks for putting that into perspective, because again, I do see it as a gift, but now that I'm so far into it, I forget, sometimes those first few days of how I felt, and that's why I wish I would have journaled. So people journal.
I know, that's all. God, it's something like I resist, and then I always feel better when I do it, but I resist it. So with this new, like, oh my God, only a few weeks away that it's coming out. Would you say February 14th? Is that what you said?
Yes.
So
my favorite day of the year.
So good. Yep. I'm not sure when this podcast will air. It might be after your book comes out. But how are you feeling about like that part of it? That like more tangible, like having to be in front of people and talking about it, and like people are going to have it in their hands. Like, how do you feel about that?
That part I'm okay with. And then I get those moments of, what if they don't like the book? What if they think my writing is whatever? All of those one-liners come in, they flow in, and then I take a deep breath and I say, remember who you wrote the book for. It's not for them. They're just not a byproduct, but it's a bonus that they want to share this with me. And I hope they will. And I do hope that people enjoy the book. It is, I am donating some of the proceeds from the book. And from that day, we've got lots of things planned. So I'm super excited for that. And everyone has shown me so much love and support up to now. I can't imagine that's going to change. But I always, always, always have to remind myself, this was for you and for the dogs. This was my love letter to my dogs. So that's why Valentine's Day came up to be the perfect day for me to share it with the rest of the world, because it brings me back to my foundation of notes and cards and love letters, but this one's for my dogs.
That's so perfect.
It's dedicated to them. So, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like we have so much we could talk about. Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, we've really covered some ground here today, and you've given me lots to think about and reflect on, and I think that's wonderful. And I don't know, I get to see my creativity in a different way from a conversation like this. Brings it back into perspective. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Journaling.
Yeah.
I want to get into journaling. So
See, you said it. You said it. It's going to be recorded now. Now you have to follow through.
Yeah. I said it like 3 times in this
did.
podcast. So.
That should tell you something. It's funny because, like, literally, I want to say, no, I think, like, literally everybody that I've talked to on my podcast has journals or wants to journal. And, like, it's something I struggle with a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
But, yeah, it's a very valuable tool if used.
Yeah, if used, that's the key.
Exactly.
And trust me, I have a plethora of journals.
Same.
As I'm sure you do too.
Same. It's like such a fun activity to go buy journals and then just look at them.
This one, it's pink. Oh, this one has dogs on it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, I will, like I said, I will put everything in the show notes so people can find you and they can find the book. And I wish you so much, like, just joy and enjoyment of this process. I'm excited to see it come out and keep in touch, and we'll definitely talk again.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for just having this conversation, and I'm sure we've reached a lot of people.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
When I finished talking with Holly, what stayed with me was how normal her creative life sounded. And I mean that in the best way. Not flashy, not dramatic, not built around a big turning point. Just a person who's been creative since she was young, lost confidence for a while, and then found her way back to herself through writing, podcasting, and paying attention to the life she was already living. We talked about her dogs and how much they've shaped her creativity. Not as a theme or an idea, just part of her daily life. They're her companions. They're part of her routines. They're part of what she notices and cares about. And over time, that became a novel. What I like about that is that it wasn't forced. She didn't go looking for a story, and she didn't decide to write a book about dogs. She stayed close to something that mattered to her. And the writing grew out of that. That feels very real to me. We also talked about self-doubt, and the way she described it felt honest. Not like something she overcame, and not like a dramatic obstacle. Just something that's always kind of there. She didn't make it into a big problem to solve. She just kept writing anyway. And that part stayed with me. Because so many people think they need to feel confident before they can start or before they keep going. And Holly's story was more like the work happens and the confidence comes and goes, not the other way around. We also talked about community, her writers' groups, her volunteering, her being around other people who care about stories and other forms of creativity. None of it sounded strategic. It just sounded like she wanted to be in rooms with other writers and other creatives. Like she didn't want to do this alone. And I think that matters. One of the other things that stayed with me was how she talked about age, not as a problem and not as something she needed to outrun, more like she's focused now, clearer about what she wants to work on, less interested in proving something. And that felt important because it pushes back against this idea that there is a right time to be creative. And if you missed it, you're too late. Holly's story doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like a long, steady, creative life. One that keeps unfolding because she keeps paying attention and staying with the work. Not because she followed a formula and not because she reinvented herself. Just because she kept choosing to live creatively in the life she already had. And that's what I'm still thinking about. Not a lesson, not a takeaway. Just what it looks like when someone stays in a relationship with their own creative life. Thank you for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stays with you in a quiet way. If this episode felt meaningful, you're welcome to follow the podcast or pass it along to someone who might enjoy it. Until next time.